place for us to exist. What's their latest thing that they're doing?
Well, they continue to follow that unfolding, right, because we're moving to ascension. So we're ascending the human form while still in density and duality, and they continue to observe and experience our experience of their project. I mean, it's really coming along here to, I wouldn't say an end, but certainly a major transformation point is the move from Homo sapiens to Homo spiritus, which is where we're living from the soul's perspective while in the physical form. And so for them, they're not done. They created it, and then they got to watch and experience it unfold.
Okay. And how long ago did they do this?
I don't know.
Did they ever say?
They've never said. You know, as far as we know, as we experience time, a long time ago, right? But they don't experience time. So for them, it's all just been going on. I really don't know. That would be a question you'd have to address to them. And they'll probably, you know, they are really here to help us live consciously, to evolve ourselves, to ascend ourselves. So questions like that, they tend to say, really, is that really what you want to talk about? Aren't there things you'd rather talk about that actually have to do with your day-to-day life? They tend to try to bring things back to what they call it, what is in your lap.
Okay, because that was kind of like my next question.
Yeah.
How can people interact with them?
Well, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 Pacific time, we have a meeting that I hold in Sonoma, California, which people can attend if they're local. And if they're not local, it's broadcast on the Internet, and they can attend that way. And one Sunday a month, typically the third Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific, we have our question and answer session, which is where people on the Internet actually submit the questions and Elohim answers the questions. So Wednesday nights is Elohim and the Council. We never really finished that talk about the Council. The Council is now 7. I channel 7 different groups every Wednesday night. So Wednesday nights are primarily taking questions from people who are present and letting each of the 7 groups give their message for that week. And then one Sunday a month is the Q&A with Elohim, where you can ask any question you want from wherever you are in the world, as long as you have an Internet connection.
Okay. Another one of our listeners has written in the chat room here, since the Elohim teach that we are all creators of our experiences, is it not then that the Elohim are part of Veronica's creative expression of herself?
Well, that's
in other words,
question.
Are you inventing these people?
Well, certainly I am creating my life in a way that allows to have that interaction. You know, we each create our reality. So I created the reality that I would be on your radio program, and you created the reality that I would be on your radio program. So I create the reality of having them in my life, just as I created the reality of saying no to them for a number of years. So I don't know that I made them up as much as I made my life open to having the opportunity. Just like I made myself open to having the opportunity to be on your radio program today. Okay.
I hope that answered your question, listener. Let me give you out the number again, 724-444-7444, show ID 59174. I've got another question. You know, I've listened to a number of different channels, and don't take this question wrong. It's just that I noticed that the Elohim coming through you, they seem to swear a little bit.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Okay, they swear a lot.
Yeah, at least once a week. At least once a week, maybe twice.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, Fred, who's the newest entity I was channeling, last week said the F word just to see what it felt like, and he wasn't very impressed. That was part of his message. Yeah. They'll use anything and everything at their disposal to get their point across. Literally. So they will use eating food, they will use cussing, they will use whatever it takes to make the point that they're trying to make. Because really what they're doing is they're translating an energetic into 2010 California English through the filter of Veronica and the experiences I've had. I don't speak Chinese when I channel because I don't speak Chinese as Veronica. Now, maybe I could, but so far not.
Uh-huh.
So basically, they come through the filter of what is me, especially Elohim. The rest of them are a little more, they still have to use the language I know, the words I know, but they each have their own distinct personalities, of course. Elohim and I have kind of grown closer and closer over the years. So I think in personality they're closer to me, but certainly they're quite different than me in many, 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 many ways too.
Are you the only channel that is channeling the Elohim?
This is what they told us about that. They said, look, there are lots of people out there that work with the word Elohim in many different ways, in religion and in spirituality and probably even in channeling. I've met other channels of the Elohim, in fact. And they said, let's do it this way. Anything that comes through Veronica will be consistent through Veronica, meaning we're going to have the same message through Veronica that we have the whole time. So anything that we say through Veronica, you can include in the other things we say through Veronica. If other channels are channeling entities that they call the Elohim or identify themselves as the Elohim, take their work as a whole of its own. Don't try to mix them and wonder if they're the same. Just take what you get from each channel and work with it as its own set of information, body of information. And that felt right to me because I can't say anything about anybody else. I can only say what I do with the work I do. So that felt like a very good way to explain that. And it's funny because sometimes people, especially people who are Jewish, I've had a few people get kind of mad at me saying, why do you use that name? That's a holy name to us. You shouldn't use that name. And I'm like, look, I didn't pick it. And if I were going to pick a name, do you think I would pick a name that has so much charge around it, that has so much, other stuff? I mean, it would be so much easier to channel like Bob. But no, it's Elohim. And people have, how do you spell it? How do you say it? But it's in the Bible. What does it mean? And they have preconceived notions about it. So, it's not exactly the easiest path, but it's the truth. They identified themselves using that word. From as I explained, the very first time they came in, they said that's who they are. Okay. And they told me how they wanted it spelled, too. So it's all them. They decided.
Is it spelled differently than it is in the Bible?
Well, I have been instructed to spell it Eloheim. And the second E is typically, you don't see it very often. But that's how they told me to spell it, and that's my website address, Eloheim.com.
Okay.
They,
So, all right. So that, what's the process of bringing them in? I mean,
I invite them in. It usually takes, 20, 30 seconds, something like that. We're on quiet for a few moments, and then they'll come in and say hello, and then they're here.
Okay. So if
you want to do that now?
Let's do it.
Okay, hang on. I'm just going to have a drink of water, and I'll be quiet for just a moment, and then they'll say hello back, or they'll keep saying hello until you do.
Okay.
They're very
meanwhile,
they're very
I'll give out the numbers again. 724-444-7444, and the show ID 59174.
Mm-hmm. Yes, hello.
Hello.
Hi. Now, where are you?
Right now I am in Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. We know just where that is. Veronica has been near there before, so we know just where that is. So we're on the radio. Is that what it's or the internet, or both, or something? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are real stars. So.
Okay. What can we help you with today?
Well, I'm going to just ask a few questions about creating the universe for us.
Okay.
You had that assignment, right, from who?
Well, there's let's see, how would you like to say it? The prime creator, the overall creator. Some people like the word God, but it has so much energy attached to it, we try not to use that word because no one seems to have a strong agreement on what that word actually means. We try not to use words that have too much of a charge on them because it's already challenging enough to change energetics into words. And if you use words that everyone has a preconceived notion about, and that preconceived notion isn't consistent, it can be quite a challenging journey. But let's say it this way. We, as souls, are experiencing our own journey. We're experiencing the growth of our own soul. And through the growth of our own soul, we were given the opportunity to facilitate an environment that would allow for intense soul growth. And souls like to grow. It's pretty much why you're here. You have an infinite and immortal opportunity to do things, so you tend to do things. Even if you want to sit around being a couch potato for a few millennia, at some point you typically get up and say, okay, now I'm interested in doing something else. So giving souls an opportunity to create an environment where there's lots and lots of different ways to have growth and lots of different ways to have expression, well, that seemed like a good idea, so we were given the opportunity to do that. Thus, we did.
And in Earth terms or Earth years, how long ago would that be?
Oh, this is a difficult thing to even imagine because it isn't exactly a passage of time kind of an experience. See, time exists in Earth perspective. Time does not exist outside of Earth perspective the way you experience it in Earth perspective. It's almost like there's no conversion between the way you experience time and the reality of how souls experience themselves being. So it's not something that can be translated very easily. But if we were going to say, as far back in history as you can imagine, we have been involved in this project. But for us, it all occurs in what you would think of as a simultaneous way.